I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is the juice. You got Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T973.com. Thank you for joining us. Headlines round one today, and we'll start with some of the results from yesterday for Red Raider basketball. They go to Oklahoma State, and Gus, they take care of business. 75-58. Really took it to them from the very start of this game. And then in the second half, after a really big lead, after the opening 20 minutes, it was kind of just, bouncing back and forth, never really in doubt. They never really made a serious run in the second half. But Pop Isaacs, much better night. Two good performances back-to-back. This time 7 of 11 from the field. Game-high 19 points. Darian Williams, who I'm just starting to think of as a program machine to get his numbers, 18 points, 9 rebounds, and a career-high 5 steals. Joe Toussaint had 5 steals as well. They forced 17 Oklahoma State turnovers. You really beat the Cowboys on their home court in front of 12 fans in almost every single phase of basketball last night.
Yeah, and I think led that game for 39 minutes, the last 39 minutes. And so other than just an early swap of buckets, in control. It was the perfect way to win a road game.
Yesterday, you were front and center for this. Pretty fresh in the memory, I would guess. Over in Albuquerque, Red Raider baseball was in action for their first true road game of the year against New Mexico and wound up winning it 11-8 in the first, inning and a half. The Red Raiders had jumped out to a 7-0 lead. Then it was 7-7. All of a sudden, it was 8-7 in the fifth, and then a 4-run inning there in the sixth. Finally gave you the cushion that you needed, and the rest of the way it was zeros for both squads in 7, 8, 9. Used a lot of pitchers yesterday, saw a lot of arms on the mound. Ultimately, you get the win. Gavin Cash legitimately started this game off with a bang, with a solo shot.
470-something foot tank.
Yeah. But a good win yesterday, and certainly not a comfortable win.
Good. The good thing, there were some clutch pitching, a lot of clutch pitching there, but 2 good innings from Petty. I mean, what I would say, probably a better way to say this, 4 good innings from Petty and Rogers, 4 innings of 1-run baseball. Each of those guys had. I mean, those are 2 of the really good arms on this staff. When I say that, just velo and stuff and all that, that's not the end all. But those guys getting on track is critical.
Yeah, because I thought, for Rogers, this is the best he's looked all year. And it's like, that's the Rogers you thought you were going to see out of the chute. It hadn't been that way, and it's not always going to be that way. We can build up this picture-perfect start to the season for anybody with expectations and with hype or however you want to see it. And just that's not always the case. And I would say when you roll into that, sometimes it's so lofty. I would say seldom does it get all the way there, but especially for him to not have the start of the year that he wanted, but good outing from him.
Yes, indeed.
Red Raider men's golf, they surge to number 5 in the rankings. This is following the Cabo Collegiate, where they were the runner-up. They just won a tournament at the Prestige in Southern California among a field of 20, so some good results has them climbing up the rankings, and they end up at 5th as of now. Doing it at the right time as well. Just 3 tournaments in the regular season remaining on the spring schedule. They'll return to action March 18th and 19th at the All-American Intercollegiate in Houston, Texas. And for Lady Raider basketball, Here's some good news for you. Sophomores Bailey Maupin and Jasmine Shavers were honored with all Big 12 honorable mention accolades. This is the first Big 12 award of any kind for Shavers, being there on the honorable mention. For Maupin, this is the second. She was on the all-freshman team last year. Both well-earned and both big pieces. And what, the back half has been clearly a season you want to forget and a season you want to put behind you. You do have one game, or at least one game left on the schedule. You will start the Big 12 tournament tomorrow. You can hear that 5 o'clock, 107.7 Yes FM. That'll be against Houston. You also
100.7 the score.
Yes, on both.
Very nice.
You also saw confirmation today from Coach Gerlich, Jazion Jackson, who you've been without all year, and that was supposed to be your starting point guard this year. That was one of the players that got hurt before you even saw her on the court. She has officially entered the transfer portal, so you won't really have anything from her to remember her by, unfortunately. But she will, I guess she can almost pull her name out of the portal, but that is a player you were hoping to have on the court and be a big part of your team. That doesn't look like you will ever see her actually play any sort of minutes as a Lady Raider. And that is the juice. This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. You can hit us up there as well. Bullfighter with a question for you, Gus.
Okay.
If a billionaire, I like where this is starting, were to ask Gus his opinion on how to upgrade Dan Law, what would he change/add? No limits.
I think I would certainly add some seating, and I'm sure the answer to that would involve sort of taking out the metal seating and putting in concrete, and that could probably be formed concrete stuff. Because I don't know that it needs a capacity of 19,000 or anything by any stretch, but would love to have another. I don't know. I think the ideal number might be another couple thousand seats, since it's $1 billion. And one thing that Coach Tadlock and those guys have talked about, like with repetition, is they don't want to give up. They don't want to give up the setting. They feel like they've got a tremendous home field advantage, so they want fans on top of the field and all that kind of stuff. That stuff resonates around the country. People talk about, hey, when you go play there, the fans are on top of you, blah, blah, blah. I've had guys tell me that at the American Baseball Coaches Association. Man, playing, I can remember the assistant coach at Duke after they came here and lost in the Super Regional in 2018. Really competitive, good, fun environment. He was talking about, man, fans are right on top of you. It's a great environment. You got to be tough-minded, da-da-da. So they're not going to go build something that's spacious and spread out. Like they would want to keep that. Now, if it was my $1 billion, if $1 billion with a B was there, what I think would be neat is to be able to. And the other thing is they're not going to move out of that stadium for a year so my $1 billion budget includes, funding for 9 months of 24/7 construction crews. Right?
Yeah, I think
that's a big part
the
of
no
it.
limits at the end of it.
Right. And so for me, that would be let's dig a hole. Let's get the existing field. We're just going to dig that thing down, and then take the metal out and go concrete. Probably concrete forms, and then and make it work that way. Like play that thing in a out of a hole, because I think it's a landlocked deal. Now the road along the third base side is going to get moved. We know that. I mean that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so there will be a little more. They won't be as landlocked, but to be able to go down and then put some seating in the outfield, or have that as kind of student accessible, like you see at Ole Miss and some of those deals. I would love to engage students in the outfield and engage them in a way that they can walk up there with their cup full of fresh lager and enjoy the game. That kind of a deal.
How do you feel about center field water features.
Well, I would love to turn that Coke bottle into something that John Harris looks about that. Coke that would spray something when we hit home runs.
Yes.
Like now.
And it leads right into a pool out in right field.
The other thing I would like to see is more like another level of sweets and stuff. Like another layer on top of what we've already got.
There you go. I'll draw up the blueprints. It won't be legible. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Appreciate you joining us on a Wednesday edition. Hopefully your Wednesdays treat you well. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass. Tonight we will have the high school fan zone over on 100.7 The Score. That is a 6 o'clock start tonight with Garrett Luft, coaches from Friendship, Lubbock Cooper, and Liberty. You can call us on the Visual Edge IIT hotline, 806-771-0973. You can also hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, questions, all of that. Welcome there. Take us anywhere with you with the mobile app brought to you by Happy State Bank. We're also streaming live on Fox 34 News Now and on YouTube. Gus, you mentioned the 2001 game between George Mason and North Carolina Wilmington, which ended in a George Mason win, 35-33.
Yep.
I was just curious about the stat line here. We'll start on the North Carolina Wilmington side. So they were 6 of 17 from 3. Not bad. Not bad.
Well, yeah, you can tolerate that.
The issue was they only hit 5 other shots.
Oh,
They
goodness.
also had 23 turnovers.
Hello.
So it couldn't have been much better for George Mason with just 2 more points, right? They were 14 of 48 from the field as a whole. Behind the arc, 0.071%. 1 of 14.
Mercy.
Oh, my.
That pretty much paints the picture, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? Looks like they were neck and neck the whole way. Wilmington had a 19-17 lead at the half. George Mason scored 18 points in the second half to Wilmington's 14 points. I'll tell you what, I thought that was about 14 was going to be the mark of Oklahoma State last night with your defense that you were playing. I mean, you the past 2 games, and I wasn't worried about it, but you go back to Texas, and that was the first game I really thought a team punched you in the mouth the entire time, and you just could not find a response. And, you know, the 50-50 balls, it just felt like it was a given it was going to go to Texas that night, or they were going to go get them. And I wasn't questioning your competitiveness by any means. It was just you weren't finding any way to win some of those, and you were just drowning. And then mindset wise, this is just past, you know, making shots or running good offense, anything like that. Mindset wise, you know, what would the response be from that? And in West Virginia, you had a great response mindset wise, and you were competitive in all phases of basketball, and especially after they went up there early and your shots weren't falling, you refocused and you attacked them. And that carried over in Stillwater last night, where the attacking them against a team that you should be beating, home or away, you dominated the entire time. And you were devils in the pass lanes. You were all over the court defensively, and then the offense looked good on top of it. But I was more impressed with what you did defensively, and hopefully that is continuing, and you're going to need that sort of approach on Saturday against Baylor.
Yeah. And this was a game where we weren't, because we've heard, I mean, we talk about, acknowledge, hey, this isn't a great matchup. A bunch of tall dudes or whatever. You go into this game last night, and obviously OSU's not having a good year, 4-13 in conference play, 12-18 on the year. So, some of their deficiencies are obvious, but you also went into that game going, hey, they're not like a big physical out. They a lot of smaller guards like ours, and so it was a night where you went in the game going, hey, this rebounding thing isn't going to require some
the size that they
Herculean.
have is young and inconsistent right now.
Yes.
High ceilings for some of those guys,
Right.
but they're nowhere near it.
And it wasn't going to require Herculean effort to do things that they've done a lot this year, where they've outplayed teams and kept that rebound margin just close enough to be able to let other aspects of their game shine. And boy, that last night they were able to just put it on that team, and and that environment was non-existent. It was almost a in a way that like the our crowd probably energized Texas once that game got going. You realized, man, these dudes are playing well, and we weren't. And then they commanded the last stretch of the first half in a way that game went from 12 points to 24 points, and it was trouble from there. Their arena to me is almost, in some ways, is that kind of thing is scary. I would say this: the New Mexico baseball situation can be this way. You get over there and you're like, there's not enough hate in this barn to get to create.
It can be BYOE, bring your own energy sort of thing.
Exactly. And Level used that thing when we were listening to the thing, but listen to the broadcast last night, and that's it. And it's because you're not going to get it from a crowd that was that pitiful. I'm not saying that to dog on them, but they're it's a bad team.
They're in a spot right now where nobody wants to be.
Nope.
And that is, from a crowd perspective, you were pretty irrelevant. It's if you were to upset someone there, did anybody see it? Like, you don't have to worry about the court storm because, it's not going to be there.
The fan base
and I'm not trying to dog on them either.
No, I'm not either.
But that's the way that it is over there right now.
Right. And we've been there. Thank goodness it was a long time ago. But, you can't expect good crowds when they've got all that they've got going on there. And that's, so the energy in that room was going to have to be supplied by us, and our guys commanded it, took it, created their own energy, outplayed OSU, got a big lead, and then held serve the rest of the game, and just commanded the night.
This on the chat line. Our defense was okay. OSU's shooting was horrendous. The shooting was horrendous, but I think both things are true, because defensively you were all over them at the start, and that's what they couldn't even get their offense going. But to the texter's point, the shooting was not great for the Cowboys either.
Good.
It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Welcome back to Tech Talk, a Wednesday edition. Appreciate you joining us. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Porman behind the glass, taking care of us. High school fan zones tonight at 6 o'clock over on 100.7 The Score. Friendship at 6, Lubbock Cooper at 6:20, Liberty at 6:40. They'll round out the show at 7-hour-long program tonight with Garrett Luft right here in the First United Bank studio, where we are speaking directly into your ears from, hopefully providing ear candy. Is that what you would say? You were shaking your head in a not sure way. We got this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Dr. Gus, it's my birthday today.
Nice.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Hope you have a extra special day. You sent me the photos from old UNM, and people have been reacting to the setup over there. We got this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Trevor. I'd say that's a pretty can of corn stadium. Sorry, I'm late to the party. Abilene Christian softball field is fabulous compared to that. We also got our softball field is 1,000 times better. And this on the chat line. Dang, that looks like my high school field. The other view from like the field is nice, and I know, like you said, they've put in a lot of work. But
it's been improved since then too.
Because this was the 18, right?
2019. In fact, the nicer picture of the two, like where Jamie and I have, we're well lit and we have smiles on our faces, and we're wearing like pullovers. That was the Tuesday night game, and that was the most recent win over there until yesterday. The next day, the picture is like cold and gray, and it was a Wednesday afternoon game we got beat.
This on the chat line. I think you need to keep your Herkle-Durkle to yourself. Sounds like a private thing, especially for 20 minutes. Noted. Speaking of been a while since you won there, Oklahoma State had been a can of worms. You hadn't won in Stillwater since 2018 before you took them down last night, so that's good to get the Gallagher-Iba whooped monkey off their back. But yes, they did. Now you face a really good Baylor team, and out of everything you've seen the past 2 wins, and again, it's West Virginia and Oklahoma State, and yes, there's the angle of it. Man, it is tough to win on the road in the Big 12 all year. We've said this, right? I mean, that, and it's still true, but at the same time, those are 2 teams that you needed to beat. But the best thing that I have seen, or at least my favorite part of how you've won, is that it seems like Pop Isaacs, hopefully he's completely snapped out of the funk that was February, but at least a baseline sort of statement is he is trending in the right direction now that you are close to tournament time. And I think that is especially with Warren Washington out, that is crucial. And even with Warren Washington back, it is important that he gets going.
Yeah, it's I mean, just because you think about the outside of maybe a conference tournament game, it's all uphill from here. And those dudes are going to have to play. I'm not saying they're very, very, very best, but they're going to have to play, good games to win from here on out. Probably, beating Baylor is going to be extremely difficult. Going to have a lot of things go our way in terms of shooting well and just all that stuff, and trying to knock some rust off of get Warren back on the floor, and knock some rust off of him in a way that it creates an extra dimension for our team defensively, offensively. Hopefully, what's one little thing that comes out of this is two guys in Jennings and EY that have gained some confidence in all of this and just gained valuable experience, and or to be trusted, because playing 3 minutes in a game may not really bolster. It's better than nothing, but Jennings has been put into the fire a bit in a way that he's had to deliver. He's also had games where he got exposed and got in foul trouble and all the things. So he's kind of been through a typical kind of sophomore year. Forced into mismatches sometimes too, Gus. I mean, we think of him just because he's a guy of size. It's different than the 7-footer sort of view, because I mean, he's if you're going traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which positionless basketball, I get it, but at the end, at a certain point, even in positionless basketball, their tallest person is probably going to be taller than Robert Jennings, is going to be bigger than Robert Jennings, all of that, and you can still play well through the mismatch, but with a mismatch, there comes an advantage on the other side. Like, that's just mathematically the way it works, and so he's been trying to grow through that as well. And then you could say the same thing with Yalaho, and we have a quote from Grant McCasland about another person who was in that depth. Yeah. And we will get to that with Kyron Lindsay, because we've certainly had a lot of questions around him not making back-to-back trips. And without saying it, Grant McCasland said it last night, and we'll get to that. But Yalaho,
I think for a lot of people, and you can certainly count me in this, has rapidly shown you things that I'm not going, boy, why has this guy been riding the pine all year? Because you can see he's got a lot of things he still needs to work on. But I think shown you a skill set that I didn't know was there just because we haven't seen him play.
Right, he's flashed a little bit. Yeah.
Forced into action, and you go, boy, there's some ball skills for a big guy there.
He can
roll, he can shoot.
Yeah, a little deft around the rim. I mean, there's some things to like about it.
I was just kind of sitting, watching them all group up. I don't know, some point in the second half yesterday with the group that was on the floor, and I'm looking at, Darian Williams, who has some years left, years left, Pop Isaacs, Kerwin Walton with availability, Yalaho circle up, and I'm going, well, you have some things you certainly need to recruit, and you know that's going to be addressed. And you can also say who knows who leaves in the transfer portal, all of that, sure. The downside, right? But I'm looking at that going, man, in year one, there's a core right there that past just this year's success could be a monster if you build the right way around them and you are able to keep the guys that have availability. And that's something that in today's college basketball landscape that you have to play as a coach, and we'll find out that from McCasland as the years go on, and hopefully we look back at 5 years and we go, man, that's a strength of his is the player retention side of college basketball. And I'm looking going like, man, you've got a core right now that if you can build around the right way, I think you should be very encouraged and very excited by.
I totally agree. A couple guys that maybe opt into their fifth year, some younger dudes that are developmental, and then go add 4 or 5 dudes in the portal. I mean, it's got a chance to be fun, and it would be fun to see Coach Mack and those guys have, 8 or 9 bona fide Lake-ready Division I players after spending the whole year with, kind of 6.5 and 7.
Yeah. It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3, doublet97.3.com. Back with more next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Happy Wednesday. It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3 and doublet97.3.com. Thanks for joining us. If you are just getting off work, you did it. Hopefully you're headed home for some R&R, maybe a nice supper. Something filling, something you earned. There you go. We are live from the First United Bank studio. I've never earned my supper once, by the way. I do eat a lot of it, though. You can call us on the Visual Edge IT hotline, 806-771-0973. You can also hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, and questions. Take us anywhere with the mobile app, brought to you by Happy State Bank. We're also streaming live on Fox 34 News Now and on YouTube if you would like to see Gus's sweet signature stag shirt. You're repping it for us today. We appreciate them clothing us. This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. I missed what Coach said about Kyron. Can you repeat what his situation is? So still don't know what the firm standing is, if this was, if he's gone or if he's just, done for the season or what. But that has been a question, right? Because he doesn't travel to West Virginia. Lindsay doesn't travel to Oklahoma State. And as we've mentioned, since Warren Washington, you've been waiting for him. It had been, okay, well, who's going to step up between Jennings, between Lindsay, and between Yalaho? And now it looks like, okay, well, this is all on Jennings and Yalaho. And last night, after the game, after you beat Oklahoma State, McCasland was asked about Lindsay's status, and this was his answer.
With our team and our program, when you look in this league, the top 2 teams in our league, the teams that are 1 and 2 in the standings, that are in the top 8 in the country, that are winning our league, have the 2 best defenses in the country. And so there's been an emphasis that what we're going to do defensively, everybody has to be all in on it. And so we're measuring who wants to guard and who wants to be about defense this time of year. And if you want to, you're going to be playing and be a part of the team. And if you're not, then it's not going to work.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, never mentions him by name, but just paints a
pretty vivid picture there.
Yeah, paints a pretty vivid picture of the issues surrounding, his opportunity to play and his playing time, and there was a couple of little flash type moments, and good athlete and all that.
Sure,
he's
measurables are there.
Yeah, but it's about more than that, and he's got to go deliver, and it sure sounded like he's going to be doing that somewhere else next year.
Yeah, without being in the building and knowing what the full situation is, I'm going to go ahead and say at some point there was some sort of disagreement here.
Well, or no disagreement in terms of you're not playing defense and it's not going to work. But yeah, why it would have come to a head in a way that you're doing this with two games left in the regular season or whatever,
and in a chance where you're finally getting opportunity to play
right.
on top of it.
Here's the thing too, what's happened now is certainly Jennings has probably been ahead of EY and Lindsay all year, but EY has definitely stepped ahead of Lindsay. And Lindsay last week in that, just abomination of a game against Texas, gets on the floor for 2 minutes, 2 fouls, and disappears after that, just to be buried down there. It's like in that game of all games where any sort of redeeming play would have gotten some playing time, and he was on the floor, and I can't remember the nature of the stoppage, but he committed one of the fouls. I don't remember if it was a media deal, if Coach McCasland called the timeout, but he came off, and it was just sort of, so-and-so get in there, and Lindsay just sort of faded back onto the bench and never to be seen again, and apparently never to be seen again in his Texas Tech uniform. And so, the answer to the question never mentions him by name. It just says we're going to play defense, and if you don't want to play defense, you won't play here.
Without actually saying,
right? Never said the kid's
He says
name.
A lot.
Yeah,
he speaks volumes without directly saying this is what happened with Kyron Lindsay.
Right. Yep. No. It was class all the way, and paints a pretty good picture of the culture they're building or have built, and probably the kind of thing that resonates with guys as as veterans from this year's team come back to next year, and new guys come in like, hey, dude, Coach Mack don't play on the so and so and such and such. And that's how a culture gets set. I remember with Coach Hayes, it was every year different sport, different deal, but every year early in fall ball, somebody would pop up or pop up a pitch they should have hit and would yell out filth and flarn at the top of their lungs. They would go echoing off the engineering building, and all of us who had been there a year like, uh-oh. And then when the play was made and it was over, you hear Coach Hayes, Clint, come here. And he never raised his voice, whatever. It's like, hey, fellas, just letting you know now, if you yell out cuss words and stuff, it ain't going to be good around here. And I'm like, oh, okay, noted. And then he'd come back to the deck, hey, what'd he say? He told me if I ever do that again, I'm out of here. And it's not the same thing, but it's the same thing in terms of right off the bat, here's the rules, here's the culture. They give you a mulligan or two, but for McCasland in terms of effort on defense, because mistakes will happen playing defense. Switches aren't made, or we set over the top and you went underneath and blah, blah, blah. But I assume just a complete disregard for defense is going to result in you playing for, somebody else.
And I agree with the class side of it, but the way that I would describe it, and if you've seen the video side of it, I would say direct intensity, because there was no beating around the bush sort of thing, and the tone of how he said it, and also just his face as he was speaking was like, there's no minced words here.
Perfect.
Yeah, which I'm for.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3 and Double T97.3.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass taking care of us. We got this on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. You can hit us up there as well. This is from Mark from Olive Branch, Mississippi. Mississippi State has a great baseball atmosphere. Was there for the 2017 series. About the 7th inning of the Tech Western Illinois game, the grills were fired up beyond the outfield fence for the second game. We walked around between games and were offered more food and drink than we could consume. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it's a great setting, and they draw huge, and it's a party, and all the things. In 2017 we opened out there and did 4 games, 2 with Western Illinois, 2 with Mississippi State, kind of mixed in throughout the weekend, and it was it's fantastic, something to be replicated.
This on the chat line. The Rattlesnake Roundup is this weekend, I believe.
There we go.
Yeah, it's a big, I guess the one in Sweetwater is the one. That would be this one, right? Yeah. No thanks.
No.
I can both see the allure and give a strong no thanks to it. This from Gary. Don't want to be driving and slam on the brakes with your slithering friend in the back seat unless it had its seatbelt on. It would be slung into the front seat or floorboard. That would make matters worse. There were a rattlesnake in the back of your car and you heard it and slammed on the brake. Yep. You got to hit if you want a place to stand. That on the chat line. And then Shelley says, got within one more step of this one last spring. A picture of a little rattler. Fence is Midland Airport property line. It rared, rattled, and we made eye contact. Nope rope. Do you have a question?
Well, I can flip the statement around. You got to hit if you want a place to stand. I think Coach Stadlock says that we'll find a place for you to stand. You're going to hit. If you hit, we'll find a place for you to stand.
You are, to me, Gus, the headlining series this weekend. But I'm going to run down the rest of the Big 12 slate, and if you were, not paying attention to Texas Tech versus Texas, I'm curious what the leader in the clubhouse would be for baseball this weekend. So you got BYU at West Virginia. Of course, they'll have a standalone game on Thursday with the BYU series starting a day early. Cincinnati is at Kansas State. TCU is at Kansas. UCF is at Oklahoma. And then Baylor is at Houston. Any of those tickle your fancy?
Well, most of those. I wonder what UCF's going to be. I'm curious about them. That game, and that series in Norman might be an interesting result to follow. OU had a tough weekend last week. They only got in 2 of the 3 games that they had on the schedule, but they were out in Vegas and got beat by Ohio State, and somebody else whacked them pretty good. That's not a loaded slate of.
It seems to me like the opening weekend, other than you in Texas, right, as far as and again, this is the preseason predictions and stuff like that. You have a lot of top teams expected against a lot of bottom teams.
Let me just say it this way, Poorman. It would be nice if Kansas wins. Let's see if he can figure out the right hotkey there.
Well, they're rolling off a 4-game sweep of Texas Southern, so if that doesn't get you ready for a home series against TCU, I don't know what will.
I would love to see Kansas win that. I legit would. There it is.
I believe you.
TCU, and TCU hasn't been beat this year. TCU's legit, and so they're going to Lawrence, and maybe the weather will be cold and miserable, and they'll hate life, and Kansas and get after them. We'll see.
And by the way, Okie State, they're in action as well, but they're hosting.
Yep, they're the non-conference. We have 13 baseball teams in the conference, and so somebody's going to be open every week.
Which that'll be a nice change, next year when it evens out, right? Because you'll have, 14 teams at play.
Iowa State
since
and Colorado's
coming over, and they can just
they can
have little pity parties or something.
Yep, they.
I wonder if the Iowa State fan base longs for baseball, because that's a state that it's, I would say, pretty decent.
I'm sure
to good baseball fans.
Yeah, I would think that they're
just the sport in general.
Yeah, the decision that they made back in 2001 or 2002 was to not invest the money as a northern school, and around that time, then K-State put a bunch of money into their into their stadium, and they've won a Big 12 championship and been in the NCAA tournament a few times, and they've defied that a little bit. But Iowa State was. They had a long way to go, and they sort of stepped away from it, and whatever. And Colorado made that decision.
What year was that when
1980.
What was the year that Iowa State?
I think they did that after the 2001 or 2002 season.
Because there's college kids that are going to Iowa State now that are, don't even remember, right?
Sure.
Even if they were diehard Iowa State all sports fans, they don't have a memory of Cyclone baseball. So I wonder at this point if there is still just like, man, I wish we had baseball to root for. If there's if they don't care at all, it doesn't even cross their minds or anything like that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine their weather profile being a whole lot different than the Big Ten schools. But the difference is Iowa State had about the first 5 years of the conference had been at the very bottom and was looking around going, man, there's a lot of teams that are a whole lot farther south from us investing in the sport, and we're either going to do it or get out. And they made the decision to get out, and that'd be really expensive to start up again. But, it is what it is. But like you said, this time next year it'll even out, and it'll be interesting to see what the Big 12 decides in terms of playing – what the conference schedule is going to look like, because you're going to have more teams that you won't play, assuming it's another 30-game, 10-week schedule.
This has been the Tech Talk Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.